But in the long run, people who will be using no such tools will acquire skills according to their best possibilities, and the people who will offset their performance levels higher with these tools will flatten out. So in the long run, which is I think kind of counterintuitive, you will be much better in the long run when you are just looking from the technology is creating more room for other things to do, so you can listen your favorite podcast or favorite ebook while you are driving. But the question is, are we losing something in the long term doing this? So the answer is yes and no. We are definitely losing some cognitive skills, right? When you can't even read anymore for longer than 30 seconds, the consequences are obvious: lower reading comprehension, ability to synthesize the text, and we can go so on. But there is also the upside, and the upside is creating more room for other activities. Well, what are the other activities? We can simply do more at once. We can multitask a lot because the technology will offset the cognitive load that is required to handle these tasks. And that's on you whether you take this as an upside or as a downside or potential door to more disruptions of the focus that we have very limited each day. I can see it on myself. I put something in my ears when I'm cooking or when I'm doing laundry or when I'm cleaning the floors. And I know that I'm not really focused or engaged in the things that I'm listening to. It can be music, it can be podcasts, but it's something that I developed along the years. But I also started thinking about this a little bit more lately, and I think this multitasking or productivity maxing is not really doing me that good in the long run. And what I mean by that is simply there is not enough time for the brain to actually consume and store the information in my case. So for example, take AI-assisted coding or solving problems with LLMs. In my experience, I have very hard time recalling any information from my past interactions with these tools. And why is that? It's very simple, because the information you are given, it's already synthesized for you. So there is very little processing required to consume the information and very little incentive to actually store the information. The information that is required on high frequency will be immediately available to you. We are using phones to remember phone numbers, so you don't need to remember those. We are using calculators to do simple arithmetic, so we don't need to memorize these tables of multiplications and such. And if we have a tool that can give us the information on demand, there is very little incentive in our brains to actually hold on this information, because when the information is required, the smart thing to do is to search for it instead of storing it and waste energy cycles in our brains to actually use it in the future. And I think this is something that you can really observe in real time. You need to get some experience with these tools so you can then evaluate whether you are going to the right direction or not. And in my case, I started to see that my brain doesn't really store these conversations. So in order to learn, you need to be engaged, you need to actually read the materials, and you need to synthesize it for yourself, which can take time. It can take hours, it can take days to get this information from concept to idea to knowledge that you can use later. But there is also one little detail I need to emphasize here. The act of learning or engaging with the material will develop your brain in a way that you can't really appreciate now. So for example, during my university time, I complained a lot about all these algorithms that I found not very usable in practice. But now I started to appreciate all these exams about math, statistics, data structure and algorithms later that somehow formed my brain to be more flexible when it comes to learning these new things. And it allows my brain to do synthesis very well when it comes to new things to learn. And you can also ask somebody, how are you thinking about the problem you are given? And sometimes it can be very hard to describe your thinking process, because all of these compounded experiences that form how you actually think. And what my thesis is that you can't really skip this part of forming the thinking process. So I think that you need to go through these experiences by yourself, you need to do this synthesis by yourself to actually build the knowledge. And in order to maintain this knowledge, you just need to do it again and again and again. You can use tools to offset your limits, but think about this way. When you are thinking about learning, you can imagine a curve that is increasing slowly over time. So you start with no experience, experience, and over time you will build experience until you become an expert. At some point of time you will become very good. And now you can imagine that LLMs are increasing your productivity on your skill level. So when you are very inexperienced and you use LLMs in this example, but you can use whatever tools that is increasing your productivity, you can see that you will be much more productive at your skill level with these tools, because you can think about technology as offsetting the gap between your experience and the actual requirement. So what will happen over time is that the curve that looks like this will be offsetted higher. You will be using these tools to make yourself more productive at your skill level. But there is one thing that I didn't really appreciate before until I looked this up. You will, at this point of time, you will increase your productivity levels by a huge margin, but over time your skill curve will be flattened, which means that you will not learn as you could. And I think that's the main problem of these things, that you can't really observe them in real time. You have no idea what will be in 5 years from now, but you will be able to assess these last 5 years as some kind of like aggregate of information and drew some conclusions. But right now you are not able to do it because things are happening right now. And this is something I need to emphasize. In order to maintain the learning curve, you need to do the thing by yourself. In order to maintain high performance levels, you need to use tools. There is some kind of like equilibrium here where you can maintain the skill curve at the best possible level as you could and also maintain the best performance as you could. But in the long run, people who will be using no such tools will acquire skills according to their best possibilities, and the people who will offset their performance levels higher with these tools will flatten out. So in the long run, which is I think kind of counterintuitive, you will be much better in the long run when you are just looking from the experience skills level, you will be much better. But if you are looking only on performance gains and performance, it will be much worse in the long run. Think about learning as continuous experience. You need to do these small little things that you may find annoying in order to maintain the learning curve. So at some point, some things will become so easy to you that you will be very tempted to offload them on the technology. And I think that's the correct way to do it. But there is one caveat, because everything is constantly evolving and things are changing every single day. You need to be careful about not losing the skill that you offloaded completely. When you take something that you know very, very well and automate it, you will have another problem, and the problem is that you can either lose the thing or lose the confidence in it. You can also be not up to date with the thing itself. But in our professional lives, things are constantly changing, so you still need to have some kind of connection to the things that you automated completely. Yeah, it's obvious that you need to use the things in order to maintain the ability to reason and use them correctly, but also we need to use them because there are other things like constantly evolving world, and this expertise can be only maintained by doing the things. I'm very curious what's your experience is like. Have you seen some changes on yourself and on your thinking? Let me know down in the comments, and if you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe for more. Thank you. See ya!